Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling, insight news, and reviews on a daily basis. And it's Friday, you know what that means. It means we are previewing this weekend in wrestling. It is going to be a very fun show. I, for one, am very excited. And not just because it's a stacked, list of topics, but also because of the crew that is joining me. Let's kick things off with Clark Taylor. Clark, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well, dude. It's December 1st. I don't care which holiday you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it may be. Happy holidays to everyone out there. I love the holiday season, December, winter. We're on our way to WrestleMania season. It's a fun time of year. We got a ton of good wrestling on tap. I'm stoked to get into it and stoked to be here as always. And happy Friday, everybody.
Absolutely. Friday, of course, I think is a lot of people's favorite day of the week. And we've got a show which will hopefully live up to that standard today. But also joining us, we have the head of opinions, Anthony Ricciardi. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. Not too bad. Not too bad. It's pretty interesting so far what they've announced for SmackDown. It's in Brooklyn, so it's probably going to be a really hot crowd. And should be fun to talk about.
Absolutely. Let's hope that it is a good show. But last, but certainly not least, we have the Tuesday Night Delight. Shad, how are you on a day which isn't Tuesday or Thursday?
Oh man, it's great, brother. I'm here. I'm excited to talk about SmackDown. It's December. It's the first of the month. Wake up, wake up. It's the first of the month, as the words of Bone Thugs. And yeah, man,
Wake
the
up,
rent is
wake
due.
up.
The rent is due every day, but the rent is due today. So if you ain't pay your rent, everyone, make sure you do so.
It's the first of
That's
the
the quote.
month.
That's the quote. That's today's reel. If you haven't paid your rent, make sure you do. But let's just jump right into things, because somebody, it looks like, is going to have to pay their rent on SmackDown, and that is Roman Reigns, because Randy Orton is coming back to the blue brand, and he is not happy. He is not happy that the Bloodline took him out of action. Of course, back when he was, teaming with Matt Riddle over a year and a half ago now, he was in a feud with the Bloodline, and that's when he went out. He was injured. And of course, he's missed now, a year and a half of action. He returned last week at Survivor Series. His return kind of got a bit overshadowed, but on Raw this week, he got the spotlight. He got that spotlight, which he absolutely, undoubtedly deserves. And it was a great, great moment. But tonight, on Friday Night SmackDown, well, he's coming after the Bloodline. Nick Aldis has invited him there. Clark, I'll start things off with you. How are you feeling about Randy Orton returning to the blue brand?
You know, my name may be Clark, but I'm a certified Randy Orton mark. There's no doubt about it. I have to admit, I'm stoked to have him back. Just stoked to see him again. The idea of Randy Orton, Roman Reigns has been tantalizing since before the injury occurred. And it is still such, without question. I am hoping, though, because if I know one thing about Randy Orton, I know that he can be very, very sneaky. And nobody's really snuck up on Roman Reigns. And we know Orton can be very, very sneaky. Hide in the grass. I would love for Reigns, the way that this is played out, to be concerned about Orton's appearance without ever showing him on screen until that RKO out of nowhere happens. Splat middle of the ring, and we don't need that many words. Not very many, if any at all. Just that. Just have the idea of Orton being in the building for the first time showed just a hint of true vulnerability for Roman Reigns. We've seen cracks in the bloodline. We have not very often seen cracks in Roman Reigns' armor. I would
You sold me
love
on it.
for this to be that. Him avoiding Orton most of the night, not even seeing him. Maybe we don't even see Orton as an audience throughout SmackDown until right in the middle of the ring out of nowhere. That RKO. Then maybe he takes the mic and cuts the promo, whatever it may be. But just the idea of the cat and mouse game, and for the first time ever, Reigns is truly on the wrong side of it. Or not ever, but since the bloodline storyline is
Yes.
on the wrong side of the cat and mouse game.
There's only one issue with your theory, Clark. I love it, but let's be real. Roman Reigns barely ever shows up, and when he does show up, they announce him ahead of time. So I think, unfortunately, he's not going to be there tonight, but I'd love to be wrong about that. But I think Solo Sikoa's getting it. Jimmy Uso's getting it. I think that's the reality of it.
Even if he picks off members of the bloodline, I would not mind that. I hope it starts with, so even to piggyback off of that, you think about if Roman's not there, logically, so that's a really great point. Of course, why would he be there if he's not advertised? Even if you have Heyman in there with Solo and Jimmy, and each one kind of gets picked off, maybe even Heyman catches the RKO in the ring. So you get Jimmy backstage, you get Solo backstage. Heyman comes out, maybe he's on the phone with Roman in the ring, RKOs him as the phone flies. Similar deal, but that's what I want to see. I want to see that snake in the grass out of Randy Orton. I don't need another I'm back promo because the one on Raw was so great. I want Viper to be on the prowl, right? I want him to be stalking his prey, for lack of a better way to put it, tonight. That is what I want to see the most.
I second that. Truly, I do. For him to, maybe just take out Jimmy Uso this week, Solo Sikoa next week, Paul Heyman the week after, and then Solo Sikoa again, maybe in a match the week after, and then there we are. The first week of January, Roman Reigns has to show up, and all his bloodline have been taken out. Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, 1-on-1 Royal Rumble, bucket trips. But what about you, Anthony? How are you feeling heading into this Randy Orton on SmackDown appearance?
On the one hand, I love that Randy's back. The other is, again, the brand split is being ignored. You have two GMs and just anybody can come anywhere they want because they have a grievance. I get the history with the bloodline. I agree with it. I understand it. But again, why have a brand split if anybody can just go wherever they want because they have a grudge? They didn't provide an explanation for that.
In fairness, they have. They provided that Nick Aldis has, because of the actions of Roman Reigns, he's invited Randy Orton to SmackDown.
They did that. Okay, at least that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But looking at it, I wouldn't have announced Randy. I would have had Roman be there because to truly have him come out of nowhere with the RKO, don't announce him. It doesn't make any sense to announce him. I would have done it even if they would have done it out of history-wise. Austin hunted DX one night and was taking out members of DX all throughout the night, leading to Hunter. That, to me, is the smart play here. Take out the members of the bloodline backstage. You don't know who did it. You assume it's Randy, but you don't know for certain. And then you have Heyman and Roman in the ring, and that's when Randy comes through the crowd and gives the RKO. That's what I would have done. This is the money match for the Rumble. That's where this is headed. Because Roman needs somebody to work with before he eventually probably gets to Cody at 40. So it would make sense that Randy would be the guy. I mean, unless you did an Uso against him, like realistically, but it's probably his last title defense before Mania. I mean, unless he does, one of the Saudi show. If they do a Saudi show in between, maybe he'll do that one. But realistically,
they're doing Elimination Chamber in Perth, so that's the only thing where.
Okay, yeah, and I don't think he'll work that show. I don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that's what I'm thinking. Like realistically, the Rumble's probably his last title defense before Mania, probably.
Yeah, no, you're probably right on that one, Anthony, and I agree that that visual of somebody just taking out the bloodline member by member, I'd have loved that.
Hmm.
But I guess because Roman's not there, they're like, we need a draw, and I guess Randy's that guy.
It is Brooklyn, though. So Brooklyn is one of those major markets. I know that they
Yeah,
typically announce them ahead of time, but I could see him showing up, especially because Randy said that he's coming for the bloodline. And they
yeah.
could be like, "What are you doing here? We didn't expect you." Like, I could see them doing that.
I hope you're right. I really do. For us to just see a Roman Reigns return without a Roman Reigns returns graphic, that would certainly be something. But what about you, Shard? Do you think Randy Orton is going to get Roman Reigns tonight? Is he going to be in the building? Or do you reckon that he's going to have to wait a few weeks to see him face to face?
No, I think he's gonna have to wait a few weeks. As great as that would be, wishful thinking, it'd be something uh not as ordinary how they book Roman Reigns and announcing him and whatnot. I don't think he will be in there, but I am excited. I feel since you won't have Roman, I think announcing Randy to be on the show is gonna have the viewers intrigued. It's gonna have people in attendance at the Barclay Center intrigued and wanting to buy tickets to attend it live. So I think that is the right call if you are going in that direction. In regards to Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns, I definitely like this idea, and I'm excited to see what we have with the build of it. I think it's going to be pretty similar to a lot of Roman Reigns feuds. You're going to have members of the bloodline kind of go be the first line of defense against the competitor, but it's exciting because he has a grip with the entire bloodline. That's the difference of him just wanting Roman's title. He's out it. He's out to get all of them. That's every member that's Solo, that's Jimmy. We saw his interaction with Jay. We might go back to that at a later time, but I like the idea of that where he's gonna strike at each member, and it has me excited to see these different matches that will get to it. And this is what SmackDown needs. I think Raw is so loaded on superstars at this current time on the men's side of the roster. Like I was just thinking about it on Monday night with all the people at the top of the food chain with like Seth, Cody. Now you got Punk back. Um, SmackDown is kind of thin, and I feel
Yeah.
that you need a little bit more star power on Friday nights. And who better than Randy Orton? I would just plug him right into the SmackDown roster and let him be part of the roster while you have it. I think it'd be a great addition, and I think that's a money match for the Rumble. I mean, Randy is a draw. He's arguably one of the best wrestlers of all time. He's had such a celebrated career for 20 plus years at this point now. Like you gotta appreciate what he does as a competitor, and I think it's gonna be a special time when they get that match. But yeah, all in all, I'm definitely excited for it.
Absolutely, and you brought up, the roster sizes and all of this. I was looking at the rosters the other day as well, and it's kind of right, especially considering Gunther's a champion. So he's not in the title picture. You've
Hmm.
really not got many heels on Raw, whereas on
Yeah,
SmackDown you kind of have too many heels.
heels.
And then there are guys like AJ Styles, who I think he might be injured at the moment or something, but even when he wasn't injured, he was barely doing anything all year. It's
Nah,
been a bit of a
he
weird
was
one.
having he was having feuds with tag teams or like factions that
Yeah,
aren't high on the food chain either. And the thing is this, man, I would like truthfully, I would do some sort of mix up where I think Raw on the other side is in like dire need of more female superstars that
yeah.
are game changers. You really just have Rhea and Becky. Respectfully, the other ones, I think they have phenomenal, great wrestlers, but they're not at that level. While SmackDown got Bailey, Io, Bianca, Charlotte Flair, like Kyrie Sane
Oscar as
now,
well.
Oscar, they're like super stacked. So there needs to be some sort of like balance to the rosters.
Yeah. I think it's difficult as well because Damage Control, obviously, they're one faction right now. But I
Yeah.
do agree. I think the brand split, and this is a separate argument for a separate day, but I think they really messed up. I think Triple H really messed up his first, draft in terms of how they
Yeah.
allocated people, because it wasn't a fair draft, and I feel like
Yeah.
maybe the bookings that might be one of the reasons why the weekly television
Luckily,
feels a
we
bit
got now that we
samey.
got all this though. I feel like you have. I know we have to get through Mania season, but they have a good chance of after Mania they just get right into another draft and
Yeah.
make it a storyline between both of those two.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. But you guys have heard our thoughts now, so let's hear yours and head to the comments, because we got Bobby Petito. Hello, Bobby. I hope you're having a great Friday. Is saying, what if Randy Orton does get confronted by Roman Reigns in 2 weeks on SmackDown? I think he's advertised in 2 weeks. I believe that's
RKO out of nowhere.
That could be the
Oh,
move. That could
take
be the
my
move.
money, please.
Splat in the middle
love
of the
it.
ring.
That'd be the
I
move.
mean,
Sell it, Roman. Sell it. I'm begging you.
Anthony
He'd sell
mentioned,
that for him.
obviously. Anthony mentioned, like, it's a big market they're obviously in today, right? Maybe, just maybe, we're talking about Randy Orton trying to get, one up on the bloodline. Well, Randy Orton said ahead of time what he's going to do. Maybe he gets there, goes to do it. Roman Reigns does a shock return, and he actually is the one to get one up on Randy Orton instead.
Spears Randy.
No.
I can see that.
No. No.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But something else we're going to have to wait and see is who Logan Paul is on SmackDown to, get face to face with tonight, because Roman Reigns, Logan Paul is coming back to SmackDown, the United States champion, and he's looking for a feud. He's looking for somebody to defend that United States gold against. And it's a big question. It's the question on everybody's lips heading into SmackDown tonight. Who will be his feud for the Royal Rumble? Who will it be? Clark, do you have any predictions?
When I read that you'd be asking me about this, I went through a list and I was like, man, who are the big stars on SmackDown? You got Reigns, you got Jimmy Uso, you got Solo. And I thought, like, big stars. I'm not really thinking. Are there any mega stars? How about, LA Knight? Are you kidding me? This is a no-brainer. It's Hollywood versus Hollywood. It's perfect. It's perfect. Strike while the iron's hot. Keep LA Knight hot. Keep him in the ring with somebody that's going to gain traction as far as social media following is concerned. Keep him in the public eye. It's LA Knight, Logan Paul. No brainer. There's one guy that stands out on the roster for this spot, and it's LA Knight in my eyes. And this is the rivalry that not only can he hang toe to toe on the mic with Logan, but I think it'll be a fun match. Logan, given the fact that he's shown an acumen for high flying, I think can actually make LA Knight's style better bell to bell than other guys on the roster that are more experienced. This is the perfect rivalry in numerous ways because LA Knight can hang, because that in-house crowd doesn't necessarily sit there and think, obviously, Logan Paul is one of the biggest stars in all of entertainment. They're sitting there and going, no, this is our star. And it keeps LA Knight under that spotlight in a positive way because he's put in such great work over the last year on the main roster. Not only does he deserve it, I think this rivalry is awesome. I would hope as a fan that the belt goes to LA Knight. If it does not, I don't know that it matters. I want to see Logan and LA Knight in the ring one-on-one on the stick. Then we're talking.
Here's the thing, Clark. I could not agree more with you about that being such a great, great feud and a feud that I want to see. But if we see it tonight, LA Knight is going to look like an absolute fool and a liar. He said last week that he's coming for the bloodline. He promised us that he was coming for the bloodline. He can't 2 weeks later flop. I think what you just described and the way that you described it, megastar versus, social media megastar, Hollywood versus Hollywood, all the things you said, I agree with you. That is a great feud, and that is a WrestleMania-worthy feud, in my opinion. But they can't just ignore the Bloodline feud. They can't have him come out, do a promo, and then just forget it.
I think he can work a little bit of both. So I think he has the face-off with Logan. I do think there's a few challengers along the way that we'll see
Mm,
But I think this is the build to that Mania storyline starts now,
yeah.
despite the
Okay.
fact that he's going after Bloodline, right? That starts now
Yeah.
because, I mean, and I loved when Kevin Owens did it a few weeks ago on the Grayson Waller effect when he did you know what happens if you say a guy's name 3 times, right?
Yeah.
And that something like that. Just it doesn't necessarily mean they have to wrestle tomorrow, not tomorrow literally, but you know what I mean, on the next whatever, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Just build that tension. Just give us the forward, not necessarily chapter 1, but the forward on the book would be nice tonight.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and you explain it perfectly in terms of why everybody wants to see that match. And you also said a great point in terms of you need to strike while the iron's hot. You need to keep LA Knight hot. That's what I'm hoping. Maybe they, do LA Knight and Randy Orton in a couple of weeks against Solo Sikoa and Jimmy or something like that, just so Knight
Wouldn't
gets
mind
another
that in the
rub.
least. I would
Yeah,
not mind that in
you
the
need to do
least.
something. Yeah.
And it would be cool actually if because they could tell a real story there with Orton needing a friend. Obviously, we understand
Yeah.
that RK Bro's out of the equation now, right? I mean, even look, rated RKO gone, right? A lot of you could kind of passive aggressively hint at where did all my friends go, and then LA Knight
Yeah.
goes, well, I can help you out there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we got viewers from us. Let's go to the comments. Numero one Superfly saying that he can see Dragon Lee, AJ Styles, or LA Knight. But yeah, he's agreeing. He'd rather save Logan versus LA Knight for WrestleMania. But there was another name you mentioned, Clark, and that is my pick, and it's also who Bobby Petito is picking, and that is Kevin Owens. I think
Ooh.
Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, I think that's just an easy feud. It's a no-brainer. Cedric Alexander is another name Bobby Petito is throwing out there. But talking about Kevin Owens, I do believe that'll be the feud set up tonight. But he has something else on first, and that something is a match. And that match, of course, is against the guy he's been feuding with over the past few weeks, and that is Grayson Waller. I do believe this is going to be the end of the feud. I think this is going to be early on in the show. Owens gets a quick, gets a victory in the match, and then is maybe going to the back, and Logan Paul comes out as he is coming out, and then then Kevin Owens just gets all offended, saying, I'm sick, I'm tired of all of this, because, Kevin Owens has kind of been going on rants as of late. But what do you think, Anthony? How are you feeling heading into Kevin Owens versus Grayson Waller?
I don't know if this is the end of it or not, to be honest. Owens certainly could put Waller over. A win for Waller would actually do more for him than a win by Kevin Owens, but I know Kevin Owens is kind of, since that peak of Mania, he really hasn't found that plateau back. Like, it's been like he's going through the motions in a lot of the stuff. So I don't know if you put him with, like you said, if you put him with Logan, again, he's going to end up losing to Logan, because I think LA Knight would probably be the logical choice for that. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because in this situation, Owens against Waller, technically there's a numbers game, because Waller does have theory in his back pocket. So I don't know if you continue this. Does this lead to a Rumble thing? There's so much time between now and the Rumble, because there is no December pay-per-view. So I don't know where they're going to go with this. You're really going to set up the Rumble this far out, like 2 months? I don't think Waller and Owens has enough to get there. I don't know if you book anything Rumble related other than people announcing, "Hey, I'm going to be in the Rumble," or maybe the Roman match. But like realistically, I don't think you could set something 2 months out. Like, I don't know if there's enough steam on any of these stories to really stretch out. I mean, unless there's a quote unquote like super SmackDown or super Raw, like to blow off a couple things in December and then lead you to Rumble with some of these things. I don't know where you go with this. I could see it going either way. I could see Owens winning if you want to get him prepared for maybe something bigger with Logan, but I could also see him putting Waller over too. Owens is one of those versatile performers that I could see go either way, and he's not going to lose anything either if he lost.
Yeah, he's that established now where a loss, it doesn't necessarily hurt him all that much. But you also brought up a great point. Of course, it's December 1st today. we're pretty much almost 2 months, out from WrestleMania, not
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania, Royal Rumble.
Rumble. Yeah.
It's like, it's so weird that they've just not put a pay-per-view in the middle there. It kind of feels like a
I
lost
mean,
opportunity. It just
even
feels
then,
so
Ben, too,
weird.
it's even more bizarre. We're only 5 months away from Mania. You forget that December 1st and away
Mm-hmm.
until the
Yeah.
calendar turns. And then you go, oh no, it's 4 months away. Months go by real quick.
It feels like
They
we were just
really do.
talking about last Mania about us going there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, we're on the road again? Like,
we are less than half a year
Mm-hmm.
from another Mania.
I'm actually going to disagree with you guys. I feel like it feels closer to WrestleMania right now with how much we're talking about it.
Yes.
And how we've been talking about this road. And you're like, hang on a second, it's 5 months away. What? We're only halfway there pretty much.
See, it's
But
going
no,
to
I
be
do
New
think it'll be
Year,
fun.
though, and then it's 4. And then it'll be February
Yeah.
1st, and then it's 3. And February is only 28 days. That one flies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and so I get where you're coming from, Ben, but we forget 5 months is close.
I mean,
Yeah.
Way closer than you think.
it was just Halloween. We're like
Right.
24 days away from Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's like, it goes.
Felt like we skipped Thanksgiving. We didn't. We had a blast, but
We did a show.
I have just checked the maths. We're slightly wrong. It's 4 months, right? But still, 4 months until WrestleMania now. Yeah, because you don't
it's
count the
even
month you're
closer.
in.
December
Yeah,
to January,
4
January to February.
You don't
February
count
to
the month
March,
you're in.
December
Anyway.
to January, so that's 30 days.
Yeah, but you don't count that when
January
you're
to
counting months.
February.
Yeah, you do.
You go
From
January,
right this second,
February, March,
if it's
April.
December 1st, you do. Are you trying to teach me to count again, Ben? Jeez Louise.
We know
We
the
need to go back to
policy. He
maths.
doesn't
I
do
don't
math.
do math, but now you're making me do it. Look
It's
what
in
you've
his
done.
contract.
But
Look what you
we have 4
done.
months, right? We have 4 months.
And a
4
half.
full months.
5.
And no. Yeah, right. Okay. It's like April, very on early in April. So it's 4 full months, right? And then at that point, we only got 2 pay-per-views until Mania. 4 months, 2 pay-per-views. For WWE, that's not many. It's so weird to think about. We're usually saying there's too many. Now there's not enough. But,
By the way, I have to correct myself. Ben's absolutely correct on the math. It is literally actually 4 months. December, January, February, March, and then it's going to be like the first week of April.
Yeah.
That's 4, dude. I can't. Look what you've done, though, dude. Now I had to do the math. This is all your fault, Ben. This is all your fault. I've relapsed once again.
Setting the chart back to
I had like a
zero.
60-day chip for being off of math.
Oh, well, you're back on the math, unfortunately. But
I'm back on the maths.
Yep. But let's jump onto something else, which we need to talk about, and that is damage control specifically. What is next for damage control? Will they control the damage? Because, of course, we saw what happened at Survivor Series. Shad, what do you think is next for this huge, stacked damage control faction?
I mean, what I'm hoping is we see a story that gets built up for Bailey versus Io Sky. I know that we've probably talked about this potentially being a match, potentially being something that needs to kind of break off and kind of get it over with. But if any time is to do it, Road to Royal Rumble, I feel like this is the time that we got to do it. And I'm just looking at the roster. We've kind of seen Io feud with Charlotte already. We've seen her feud with Bianca. I don't think her and Shotzi's a feud that can garner a Royal Rumble type of match. I think the way to go is that we need to continue seeing the distrust and damage control having with Bailey, them kind of being over and odds, blaming her in a sense with a lot of what's going on, making her feel like the black sheep of the group, and just getting her out, kicking her out, and getting us to a path where we get Bailey back as a baby face. I think Bailey is in a dire need of a reshuffle towards her character. I think she knocks it out the park, whatever she needs to do, but something is not sticking with her heel character at this point. It just doesn't feel the same with her being Bailey two belts during the pandemic, or the whole initial feud with her and Bianca Belair leading throughout that entire 2021 calendar year. Like it's becoming very dry, and I think fans love Bailey, but it doesn't feel the same when she tries to cut promos out there in the crowd. She gets what chanted. I think if you get her back into being a babyface, getting jumped by the damage control, her just getting beat up by all of them. I know my prediction that I thought was gonna happen didn't happen, but I think you can still swerve it in a way where EO is like, I got my crew, or who I think could be the boss of the entire damage control, the talking piece, Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai saying, "No, Bailey, I got this. I know how to handle these girls. I can lead them to success." And her getting Bailey out of there verbally, and then we get that Bailey versus Io Sky match in Rumble. And I would keep Damage Control as a faction between having Dakota, Io, Asuka, and Kyrie. Kyrie and Asuka were a great tag team as the Kabuki Warriors. Get them back in the tag team division. That's a viable, strong tag team that you can have for a tag team women's division that's not that strong. It feels a lot more important when you add people of their stature into it. EO is a great champ. You can move her after that feud if she's still champ in another big time match, whether you want to bring it back to Bianca, Charlotte, or maybe Jade Cargill, who knows? But if I'm going a direction, it's got to be Bailey versus Io
Well,
and her
you
getting
said an
kicked out.
important boss. No, an important word there. I spoilt it. You said an important word there, and that was boss. And I thought you were going in a different direction because
Ah, man.
Mercedes Monet this week posted a video of her training in a ring. I love your idea about Dakota being, the real leader of the group. But what happens if she kicks out Bailey? WrestleMania 4 versus 4.
Or
Damage control versus the 4 horsewomen. Maybe
now,
we're just speculating, but
now I would love that. See, I predicted it last week with her initially coming back. We got more time to do it. Yeah, let's do that.
yes, let's do it indeed. Another thing you mentioned, of course, Bailey. She's not felt the same in this gimmick. Undoubtedly agree. I think everybody universally kind of agrees with it. Clark's been going on about it for months and
Yeah, I
months
was
and
gonna say I've been
months.
robbed of 2 years of the best talent in all of women's wrestling, f- carrying these other girls along, right? Like a backpack. Speaking
But
of like Orange Cassidy
Oh
carrying the
yeah.
title in a backpack, just absolutely bringing them all along, and then all of a sudden the payoff is we get Dakota Kai as the speaker, and then Io Sky got a long title run. Come on, do
yeah, but
Bailey
here's the
justice.
thing.
Bailey
Here's
deserves
the thing
better.
about it.
I'm gonna
No,
start
no,
that
no, no.
hashtag. Bailey deserves better.
I'm saying it right now. I think she's in this position for one reason and one reason only.
She's so
Herself.
dang
And I
good.
don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean that as I think she's selfless. I think she wanted to, help elevate these women. And she has elevated them. Let's not try and argue she hasn't. She undoubtedly has. But in the process, she's done nothing for 2 years of her career. Well, year and a bit. So, listen, they need to stop it. And we need to see, Clark, you said it the other week, a new version of Bailey. Yes, Shad?
Yeah.
I think that point you just made is probably one of the most accurate statements I've heard, because I think a lot of what people do is, and maybe a lot of us, and myself included, we like to harp on what damage control has done, but Bailey has done a lot within bringing EO into the main roster and Dakota into the main roster and being liked by the main roster. We always talk about people are not familiar with the talent in NXT when they come to the main roster. How do we feel that they need to be important? How fans get engaged to them? EO gets reaction now on a main roster. And that wouldn't happen if she was not in damage control and Bailey
100%.
didn't bring her up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and
I agree.
that's the thing is like, right? If Bailey isn't there, it's a completely different deal. But it is one of the most selfless acts, to your point, Ben, that you could possibly ask for out of someone as talented as Bailey. But it's time to get the full talent. It's time to get Bailey.
Yes, absolutely. One idea Anthony Manzano has is if they turn Bailey babyface, I think what happens is they're going to keep the edge she has as a bad guy and do what they did with Becky and, make her get over with being, a bit of a,
Yeah,
I guess a bit
I
of a
don't. I'm not
tweener.
saying she needs to be the hugger again.
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
agree.
Like,
That's what we were
No
saying.
more
Yeah.
no more
Yeah.
wacky inflatable arm flailing tube
ones
men.
that you have in used cars
I mean,
lots. No.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see just her hug someone there, like one of the four horsemen. That would be a cool moment. But
Just
none
a
of the
little
inflatable stuff. But now
wacky
let's move
inflatable.
on.
Wacky
Let's
inflatable.
move on, and Shad, I'll stick with you. Let's head straight into this weekend's tomorrow night's AEW Collision. Saturday night is certainly all right for fighting, and we have 3 bangers coming up tomorrow in the Continental Classic Blue League, as Daniel Garcia will take on Andrade El Idolo. Claudio Castagnoli will take on, and great. I can't find out who he's against. Give me a second there. Bryan Danielson will take on Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
And Claudio Castagnoli, do we know who he's facing?
Let me check. I have.
Okay, let's while I'm trying to find out this one. Technical difficulties, I swear, guys. But what are your thoughts, Shard, for Daniel Garcia versus Andrade El Idolo and Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston? We'll get those predictions on those two first.
So I mean, we talked about it yesterday on a throwback in the Dynamite review, where I think I do enjoy this a lot, but I do wish that there was more storylines driven within these matches, rather than them just kind of being weekly matches every week, because I feel like it does take a lot of time because you have to give the time. But that's neither here or there. The matches themselves, I think this Saturday do have some interest for me because they did speak about Danielson and Kingston on Wednesday,
Yeah.
and you're seeing the promo of Kingston kind of being down in the gutter where he's been taking multiple losses, and this is a title that is the very much importance of him because one of his belts is, if I'm not mistaken, tied to this, right?
Yeah,
Or
well, the
yeah,
winner gets it.
yeah, so he's I think that's a great story and probably the premier story that's being told, minus Danielson obviously being a participant in it, and you have both of those guys in the match. So that one I'm super invested and excited to be. I got Eddie Kingston pulling out the underdog victory for that because he
Ooh.
can't take a L. He needs to get a W. So I think he's gonna go against all odds and pull out a W. Andrade and Garcia, that should be a fun match. I like both of them. Big fan of both in-ring
Yeah.
competitors. I'm gonna go Andrade with the win, and then did you find who Claudio is wrestling
Yes,
yet?
the last one, right? We seem to have technical difficulties on their website, right? Their
Sorry.
own website. But Bobby Petito saved us, and he is saying it's Brody King, Claudio versus Brody King. Ooh, well, that's a banger. Give me some of that, please.
See that
What's your
match?
prediction?
They don't need a storyline for that match because
No.
I like Brody King a lot. Oh man, how many points does Brody King have right now? Did he win last week?
I can tell you that Brody King currently has 3. Yeah, so he won. He did win
And
last week.
Claudio is at what?
Claudio's at 3-2, and so they're the only two because they're the only two.
I got
won.
Brody King. I feel like you need to keep him strong. There's something with
Mhm.
him to be a monster. So I'm gonna go with Brody King winning that.
That is certainly a good take. Let's move on now to you, Anthony. We have the the matches now, of course. Quick reminder, I'll read them out once again. Daniel Garcia, Andrade El Idolo, Bryan Danielson, Eddie Kingston, and Claudio Castagnoli versus Brody King. Are you excited for these, Anthony? And who do you think will be walking out the winner of these 3 bouts?
It's funny, like Shad said last night, we were talking about this on the show. I don't overly get into this tournament because I like tournaments with eliminations, and I feel like they're just kind of throwing these matches. There's no build to them. There really isn't. It's like, oh, here's a match, and usually they're predictable. These ones aren't as predictable, so I this is better. But you said Danielson against Kingston, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That one should be good. To me, I could see them possibly. I could see Kingston winning. I could also see them doing a draw because just the way that. But the way they're building it up, I could see Danielson picking this up. Honestly, if I'm picking somebody, I'm going to say Danielson because I could see them building up of like Kingston being depressed. His 2 belts are on the line. I could see them doing that. Andrade against Garcia. Andrade would be the one that I would give it to. I think Andrade has the momentum. He's with Lana or whatever her name is, CJ Perry now. So I could see them doing something with that. The last one, Cesaro and Claudio and Brody King. That could be, honestly, of any of them, that could be a draw one where they're just beating each other out and they're both counted out. Like if there's a count out, like I could see them doing that for this one where they just brawl to the outside and it doesn't stop. And it's a draw. I could see they have to have a draw at some point because I think that's realistically I mean they could run the whole tournament with no draws, but if there was one, like just the physicality, these two could totally go the
It would
draw
make
route.
sense.
Yeah,
I undoubtedly agree with you, Anthony. It would make a lot of sense for this to be the one which is a draw. And like you said as well, David seconded your point basically in his review this week. I thought he said it fantastically. You need to tell stories in these tournaments. New Japan tells stories in these round robin tournaments because that's the only way you can keep people invested. Otherwise, like you said, they might as well do a knockout one. You need to tell stories throughout because, I mean, that's how you're going to draw people in. Story is king. It's not a difficult
I have a quick
concept,
rant
but...
about this before I get into my picks, Ben.
Go for it.
So guess what? Yes, that's been the number one complaint all week is they got to tell stories. They got to tell stories or whatever. I watched the World Cup. I'm American, right? And I know if we can get to the knockout round, man, is that a win for us, right? You guys call it football. We call it soccer. Doesn't matter, right? I had to figure out that format because it's different than normal American sports. It totally is. In fact, it's unique to football, as you'd call it, soccer, as I'd call it. I enjoy the format in the sense of I watch every World Cup. And I go back and look at the most recent one. And you know when the stories start to happen? If you're not a fan, you don't watch the initial stages, the initial matches. Yes, you watch the round robin once it gets close, but the stories start to develop when it's like, oh, this big juggernaut could be eliminated. Oh no, Morocco may make it through. Saudi Arabia may make it through to the knockout stages. That's when the stories start to happen, given this format. Right? That's right there. When you look at World Cup soccer, go back to Brazil, Colombia, when Colombia is knocking out a big team like Italy, all of a sudden in their group and going on a run, and they got the one lefty kid that ends up getting signed with Barcelona out of it, scoring all these goals, right? Or all the way back to 2010, Diego Forlan, same gimmick, Uruguay. They're knocking out the big dogs and they're doing this and that. That's when the stories start to be told, is once the tournament has gotten off the ground. So I understand the complaints about the initial matches being a little bit like wrestling just to wrestle, but that's how a tournament of this caliber generally starts at the highest level of promotional and marketing acumen, aka
very,
the World Cup.
Very, very quickly, I'm going to jump in and say, to your point, that's a great point, but they need ratings right now because they're about to enter TV negotiations. They can't afford to wait 3 weeks.
It's not that simple,
or whatever.
It's
but
not that simple.
It's also a case of with it. I mean, New Japan, fair enough. It's a good point. As the tournament will go on, they'll tell more stories. But some people have already had 2 matches and they're still not telling the stories.
How can you tell a story in the first 10 minutes of a movie?
No, but New Japan have done it fantastically, right? With the first night, obviously going in, there's very few stories, and they have a couple of absolute bangers in their first round. AEW didn't do that. Then from those bangers, maybe there's a couple of injuries, and they start to tell stories. AEW's on the second round haven't done it. But Clark, what are your picks, as well as your response to that?
Okay, give me the match list again for my picks.
It is Daniel Garcia, Andrade El Idolo, Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston. That will be a banger. Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston, and of course Brody King versus Claudio Castagnoli.
I'm going to take Daniel Garcia. I'm going to take Bryan Danielson, and I'll take last match one more time.
Claudio Brody.
I'll take Claudio. There you go.
Nice. But I mean, no, it does, all of this does, trigger. It's a good argument. It's one which a lot of people are having. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the most hardcore fans will watch wrestling just for it to be wrestling, undoubtedly. But the fact is they're losing views. And the fact is, When has everybody been? When is the time when everybody starts praising AEW? It's when they tell a good story. That's the same time. Hangman Omega, Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Page, and there's countless of other, examples. That's the time when people praise
The
them.
thing is this, I'm not saying you need to tell a whole like storyline from each match.
No,
I
of course
understand
not.
that
No,
these are
yeah.
tournament matches, but there's got to be at least put some sort of interaction between the match where you get invested to kind of see what's going to go on. That's all I'm saying on it. Cuz
Like
like
Or a
like a
few
promo
injury
thing, like a
angles.
promo package or
promo video
something.
or
Yeah.
like a vignette, like
Injury
something like
angles
that.
too. I mean, that's how New Japan have made it successful. Maybe a losing streak. It's still a bit early, to be fair, for that in this one. But Clark, I do agree. I think it's going to get more interesting as it goes on. But I feel like that's kind of an excuse in a way for just being a bit lazy in the first couple of rounds. I do,
Tell
but
Diego Forlan that.
we'll have to discuss this on Sunday, Clark, because me and you will both be on the show for that one. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you're on Spotify, please leave us a cheeky 5 stars. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, give us a follow. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Clark. Thank you to Shad. And thank you to Anthony for joining me here today. We will see you guys tomorrow. And thank you to everybody commenting. Peace and